Hi, welcome back to the second half of tonight's show, where we're going to look forward to our game against Glasgow next Friday and all the other Pro 14 action. So, boys, we take on Glasgow again. Like, it's only a couple of weeks ago that we played them in Europe. I think it's probably going to be a fairly different team that's put out.
I think two very different teams.
Radically different teams. I mean, we made, 13 changes last week?
Yeah.
For the game against Ulster. And we're going to have to make more changes for the game against Glasgow.
Full show.
Some may well be injury enforced. I'm not sure what the situation is with Noel Reid. Not sure what the situation is with James Ryan, because he looked out of it when he went off.
He seems very unfortunate injury, doesn't
he?
He
does.
I mean, obviously he wrote off last season, which I don't think is probably, in hindsight, it's not probably a bad thing for him. Give him that time to develop his body a bit more. But he was out injured already this season. Now he's got a head knock. I don't know how long that's going to take him to come back from. But
I'm sure they'll look after him, because he's a prized resource.
But let's be fair, they'd look after anyone regardless of whether, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they give him the first class.
But I'd say they look after him. Whether he's back or not, I don't know. One of the things I noticed from the selection from last week was the amount of guys who had been, given a week off, like Bent, like Fardy.
Yeah.
So you're bringing those guys back in. Maybe Fardy will have to replace Devon Toner, but that's okay. Bent will have to replace Furlong, but he'll do a good job there. So we do have strength in that, and then it's a question. I mean, Jordy Murphy wasn't called up into the squad, which is great for Leinster.
Yeah.
So you'll have him. You'll probably have one or two others that will be left behind to get a bit.
Maybe
more
O'Brien
game.
might.
Maybe O'Brien.
I think O'Brien and Carney will probably be given back to us.
Yeah.
Bench at worst, but I think we might be because they both need match.
Yeah.
Sharpness. So to play another game before they have to face South Africa, I'm sure would. And geez, O'Brien looked in great form. Did he played the full 80? I think.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So that's a good.
He
sign.
moved. He was picked at number 8, and then they moved him onto the flank when Levy came on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When Conan came on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he played super.
Yeah, I thought he played very well. So we have these things. I to be perfectly honest with you, as much as possible, I wouldn't change the back line. I thought the back line that took place after 20 minutes. It was very interesting to see Jordan Larmour play outside centre, actually.
Well, it's not like we've got a lot of options in outside centre.
I thought he did really, really well. Ronald Loughlin inside, him at outside. I mean, it's one area where we are very skinny. I thought maybe we needed to sign maybe a joker or something just to have there.
Well, maybe James Lowe can play in the centre.
Maybe, but he won't be playing there next week.
No.
Well, his season's over now.
Yeah.
Came up short just in the final against Canterbury.
Yeah.
Two teams from the mainland playing each other. It's good to see that he's free at last and he hasn't been injured, as far as we know anyway.
Yeah.
So we won't see him over this part of the world until the end of November.
Dragons game.
Hopefully we do. Hopefully he can make his home debut in the RDS and impress a few people in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, so I'd as much as possible, I'd start the back line that, went off at half time, as it were. This is assuming that Noel Reid is injured, obviously. If he's fit, you bring him in, obviously, of course. But
it's a 6-day turnaround, so you've just about enough time to complete the protocols for HIA. So if there's any hiccups at all, he's not going to make it.
I would love to see Jordan Larmour on that 4G pitch, though. I'd say he'd enjoy running very fast on it.
He's got a great turn of pace, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Apparently that's what gets you on 4G pitches is when you try to change direction.
Yeah.
So all the steppers are going to, it's a whole different experience. It's quite jarring on the...
Probably be well used to it, though, with the Donnybrook pitch. I mean, he's played there a lot for Leinster A, for Ireland A, Ireland under 20s. So he might be well used to it. The back row is going to be interesting because
we're running, for a team that has the most amazing resources in the back row, we're running a little bit skinny. We're going to be probably looking to put someone like Doris on the bench, who's a great player.
If you look at it, right, we're assuming we'll have Sean back. I think it's safe to assume we won't, because we have Geordie.
Without him,
we have
skinny.
Max Deegan.
Yeah,
and that leaves us one short. And who is that one? Is it Quayle and Doris?
Well, if Sean O'Brien isn't playing, then it has to be.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody. Timmins is injured.
Yeah.
Heaslip is injured.
Josh Murphy, maybe?
Yeah, he's been playing the second row, though.
Played in the back row for Leinster in the British Irish Cup. Played well, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's an option at 6, isn't he?
Richard Dunn.
I thought he retired years ago.
Different one. That's just for you, John.
with a drawn on number 6.
We taught him everything he knows. That
That's
lad.
right, yeah. So looking at some of the other fixtures this weekend, Munster take on the Dragons in Cork. You got to predict the home win there.
I can just see the queues out the door in Musgrave Park for that one.
Well, I'm sure the
You're saying
Cork.
there's going to be communions, early communions. This
Well,
week
I'm sure
in Cork.
Corkonians will be saying, "God, we always seem to get the dregs
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
just
fixtures."
thinking like, if you, how not to market a team in the city, give them the biggest load of shit you can all
yeah,
the time.
there you go.
Well, also the during Hurricane, whatever it was called, a lot of the
Sylvia.
Cork guys couldn't
Murphy.
make it up. Hurricane Murphy.
Yeah, I decided to call them. Trying to give all the Hurricanes Irish surnames.
They couldn't make it up for one of the games there. Was it a Friday night game a few weeks ago? Anyway,
Oh, yeah, because the Hurricane was a couple of days later.
no,
They were doing Christopher
there was-
Berg, were they, waiting for the Hurricane? There's nowhere you can hide. Yes, there is. Cork.
You can hide, but you can't run. Anyway, back at the Dragons, Bernard Jackman probably be in one way relishing to going to play against Munster, shorn of their internationals. 'Cause let's face it,
It's
the
a good time to
Dragons.
play them.
If you're waiting for the
Aren't sure
Hurricane, does
enough
that make
to-
you a lady in red? Sorry, carry on.
You're getting slapped now. Isn't it? You mention that man's name again.
Bernard Jackman.
Carry on, Jason.
Well, I suppose we can't ignore the fact that there's going to be certain fellas that will be available for Munster next weekend that aren't in our Ireland camp.
Andrew Conway.
Conway, well, he might be serving his
No,
ban.
he might be serving. Actually, well, that brings us into that actually because, yeah, well, we start off. Yeah, so Simon Zebo wasn't named in the Irish squad. Who'd have thunk it?
Well, I kind of initially, like last week we said, and I thought more I
would've
thought
picked
about it, I changed my opinion on it, and I actually think it's a good thing because I think it lays down a marker. Said if you're going to leave, you're not,
gone.
and
Putting you dead.
and I kind of said like this is an opportunity for Schmidt to. It's probably the only time you can experiment a little bit, bearing in mind that 2 years down the track when he finishes is the World Cup, right?
Yeah.
So if he can't really experiment too much for the Six Nations, so
Mhm.
he's only really got this autumn period. So obviously he wants to win the match, all 3 matches. But if he's going to put a few new guys in, it's going to be against Fiji. So
Yeah.
like Zebo's not going to be there in 6 months' time.
It's a Moody Blues management. If you're going to go, you better go now.
It's
well, like there's always this thing of the long goodbye. And
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
no.
yeah.
well, it gives the lie to what Dave always says about Irish rugby and the World Cup. That the Six Nations is the big cash cow, and it's all we're interested in. And yeah,
this
the
is the
World
Irish
Cup is
international
nice.
system,
Well,
isn't it?
this is one of the.
But
Sorry.
if I had been picking an Irish team with an eye on the 2018 Six Nations, I might have included Simon Zebo.
Mhm.
And I think the fact that he hasn't is more maybe it's trying to make a statement, like you say, Jason, but also it's kind of saying, well, look, we're looking at the World Cup now, guys. He ain't going to be here for it.
Yeah.
Well,
but
I think the interesting thing will be
That's
what
good.
happens to Andrew Conway. Conway is in the squad,
Mhm.
and he could be facing, a couple of games of a ban.
Could be.
So somebody else will have to be called up to the squad. What will tell us then is because is there anyone else outside the squad at the moment apart from Zebo who would be the next cab off the rank? It would be Simon Zebo. I mean, no matter who it is. I mean, Stockdale is in the squad. Byrne is in the squad. Daly's injured.
no, anyone of note is pretty much
Anyone who's of note is in the squad. So the next guy, I mean, unless he goes and picks somebody like Gilroy or Dara Leader or
Fergus McFadden.
Fergus McFadden or Tiernan
Tommy
O'Halloran.
Bowe.
The other option is Tiernan
Well,
O'Halloran.
that was another interesting
That was
one,
another
or a
interesting-
strange one that wasn't.
But he's always a guy that I've thought that Joe doesn't trust. You look. Joe's always kind of been a bit easy about picking Tiernan O'Halloran.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of thought it was maybe because because he got a big boot on him, but Pat Lam was never a fan of
Him booting it.
him booting the ball. With the result that I often thought that he couldn't kick because he never seemed to do it for a
Humongous
full
boot,
back.
yeah.
But he has got a big boot on him. The big exception or the big shock for me was Sean Cronin.
Yeah, it was a very unusual.
Who selects James Tracy and
Rob Herring.
Rob Herring ahead? Okay, if it was Niall Scannell, I'd maybe go okay. But who selects the two of them ahead of Sean Cronin? Either Sean Cronin is injured, or
It's a very peculiar selection.
there's something going on there. It's just doesn't make any sense to me.
But
whatsoever.
just to make it a perfect storm for all the wallpaper paste eaters out there, he picked Bundy Aki when he left Simon Zebo.
Yes.
You know, they were foaming at the mouth, them lads. So they were.
Yeah.
That was funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a funny one to illustrate, you know, the fact that Bundy Aki's in and he's out,
Yeah.
and it also doesn't play well
I mean,
that Bundy Aki has kind of been honest in saying that he
Yeah.
wants to play pro rugby or to play international rugby, and you know he's only just made up his mind who he wants to play it with, and you know, which is not what a lot of Ireland fans want to hear. They want to hear that he wants to die for the jersey
Like
and sing
CJ,
the national anthem.
But like
and-
CJ, you know, CJ played a perfect
Media.
PR
Yeah.
campaign. You know, learning the
and Richard Strauss before him, Richard Strauss.
Yeah.
We see. We always complain about these interviews with players. They're so monitored. They're so pruned. We never get the truth out of them. We don't actually want the truth out of them. What we want to hear is what we want to hear.
That's very true.
So you know, if somebody actually comes out and is honest,
We
we
need
kind of
more.
go, "No, we didn't want to hear that."
Well,
No,
in
no,
in fairness to Zebo, he was kind of honest in
he
his
was, yeah,
interview.
yeah, absolutely.
And he
yeah.
basically said, well, I at least had the balls to do it.
I have no problem. I have no problem with what Zebo
Why not?
said.
If he wants
Yeah,
to go,
yeah.
that's great.
I have-
But then, just no, like... And,
Swings and roundabouts. Yeah, actions of consequences.
And I don't think, to be quite honest with you, every rugby player in this, professional rugby player in this country knows the crack.
Yeah.
You're being paid by the union to play here. You get looked after really well. If you want to go make more money abroad, fine. But you ain't going to be in the national team. And otherwise, we might as well be talking about Lansdowne or Wanderers or Coolmine or whoever, because pro rugby will be dead
Oh,
if the IRFU pick Simon Zebo and he goes to work in France, just like they would lose practically their entire
So you're saying
roster.
Blue Talk would have to do a whole episode about Robin Cunningham. No, but there's the thing. I mean, Simon Zebo was a professional player. He did what professional players do. Professional players get paid for playing rugby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have no problems with him doing what he's doing, or no problems with him saying what he's saying. On the converse of that, I have no problems with Joe Schmidt doing what he did, because that's just how it works. I'm still not convinced that. I think Simon Zebo looked at things. He thought, right, I'm going to spend 2 years of my best earning potential, waiting for a World Cup that I might not get picked in, because I don't think that the coach has a huge amount of faith in me. I'm not entirely surprised about this.
As a lot of people have said as well that, you know, France might suit him. You know, he'll be throwing around the big flashy passes and doing all his, you know, he'll have more license
And
to
maybe this
thrill.
has been a bit unfair, but people might say that he mightn't have to train as hard.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ronan O'Gara has said that. You know that.
And Bernard Jackman and his desserts.
No, but I mean, Ronan O'Gara has said it about Zebo, that he needed when he played to apply himself more.
Yeah.
And you know, if there's not that emphasis on doing mad physical work and, you know, being uber fit in France, where it's kind of more laissez-faire about it, that you know, that might suit him, because
Yes.
he does look like he's carrying a little bit of weight.
I think that's always been. I think he's always had a bit of a struggle that way. And it's not something that again we'd go back to Joe Schmidt. I mean, he probably got away with it. He did get away with it under Declan Kidney. Joe Schmidt wouldn't. If you're not in the condition that Joe Schmidt wants you to be in, then you're not going to play for Joe Schmidt. It's as simple as that.
One thing that struck me, just going back to a point that you made earlier, Dave, was or John, it was actually you, when you mentioned about the cycles and the IRFU taking the World Cup seriously, or more so than the Six Nations. Like, this is the first time that a coach has been contracted to the end of a World Cup, like in a cycle.
Yeah,
Like, it was always done
Yeah.
for some bizarre reason. I mean, just going back to the 90s, it was the 2 years in the middle of it, and then, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I always said that if we took the World Cups really, really seriously, we would have sacked O'Sullivan after 2007, we would have sacked Kidney after 2011, we would have sacked Schmidt after 2015. Look, it's hard to know about how seriously Ireland are taking the World Cup. We'll know in 16 days' time. Because at the moment we have to pretend it's serious anyway. You know, just like the way we have to pretend we like sevens. You know, in 16 days' time you can it'll be like that scene in The Simpsons where the guy presses the button and all the old Soviet Union flags pop out of the United Nations desk saying we never went away. You know, so there'll be a certain element of that to it, but we'll see. But you know, what'll be very interesting is to see who, if Conway does drop out of the squad or has to drop out of the squad, who he calls up next. That'll tell a tale.
Yeah, it will indeed.
Because I mean,
It depends how long Conway gets, because the matches aren't for another few weeks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he
but
might,
how many games would he have available? They do it on games these days.
do they? Okay.
And remember they banned Keane Healy, and they didn't count a Pro 12 game because he wouldn't have been picked for it anyway. Do you remember
That's
that?
right, yeah.
So they might.
But maybe we could do Sonny Bill Williams and say, well, we play a
a
trial
training
match.
game. Yeah, I don't think we'll get away with that somehow. But it'll be interesting to see, because I don't think Tiernan O'Halloran covered himself in glory really
No.
the other night. He dropped one ball into touch, and I could just see Joe Schmidt kind of going,
Yes,
Six.
You know?
I was thinking that. And another guy that I thought was poor was JJ as well.
Yeah,
Like, he
yeah.
came on. He. I mean, anyone can do it, but he got a fairly bog standard pass that he knocked on.
Oh, it was awful, yeah.
Like, I was watching the match obviously on TG Cahir. They were talking about. They seemed to be going through his highlight reel. One of which he kicked the bloody ball away, and they seemed to be saying, "Oh, look at the great little dink through for this." But in fact, he actually kicked the ball away and it went dead.
yeah,
I feel a bit sorry for him, because in the three-way tussle for the 10 shirt in Munster, like, nobody is making up their mind. The coach is off ski in a matter of weeks, probably, if not days. He'll probably go in the break in November, depending on how things go. So he hasn't nailed his colours to the mast on which 10 is the 10. Keighley is in there at the moment.
Yeah.
Blaindal
Like
hasn't
that-
been playing well.
And for a team,
And Hanrahan is getting so little time because of that, because they're absorbing most of the game time, that he's not getting it. So when he does go, he does a howler like that, and all of a sudden you're back in your,
But like, if you were to ask any Leinster fan, you pretty much could name what's our starting 15 for the game against Exeter. Our next big major encounter
with everybody fit.
with everyone fit, right? You could probably name it. With maybe one or two exceptions. What are you going to go for in the back row, sort of thing? But pretty much you're going
the back row alone
You could, of course,
for a week.
but you're pretty much going to nail. You're going to name. You're going to get. There's going to be a consensus of probably 13.
yeah.
If you were to ask a diehard Munster fan, what is your for the back-to-backs against Leicester? What's your starting 15? Could you honestly say?
No.
Like, I mean, the coach has seemed to refuse to pick
Well,
a settled team.
It's like I say. I mean, I've said this before. Munster came to the Aviva Stadium last season and were handily beaten and didn't look all that good, right? And then everything went into a state of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And then this season, they came to the Aviva Stadium, were handily beaten and didn't look all that good. Nothing has really changed. There's still... That team is still in a state of flux. I don't think anybody knows what the best 15 is. What hasn't happened is there's been a lot of talk for the last year since it was announced he was coming home that JJ Hanrahan is the Messiah. No, not the Messiah. That's unfair to him. But there's been a lot of expectations placed on his shoulder. Then the poor bugger just happens to have a drop in form around now.
Well, he
Well,
hasn't
it's
been
not
given any
helping,
love
like-
either.
Oh
though.
yeah. Oh, he's not been given that.
The other unfortunate
Well, I mean, he's
thing,
going down to play BNI Cup.
Oh,
Day.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, come on. Like,
But I think that might be a case of that they're trying to play him back into form.
Okay,
I think
maybe,
that's
but
what they're
still.
doing with that.
the other thing, unfortunate thing for him, is that Rory Scannell is in really good form. While they've got a problem with 13, with Tautay missing, he's not a 13, and neither is Scannell. And he might slot in seamlessly at 12, but then, he's got competition with Scannell, who's playing very well.
The problem is the only player they have at 13 doesn't need gloves. He needs a bra
Yeah, he really
because his
does.
hands like tits.
Yeah, God love him. But he's a big lad. He'll punch a few holes for you, just as long as you don't want the ball back
Yeah,
to Rory.
he punch a few holes. You just don't give him the ball while he's doing it.
But like you were mentioning, fellas, that Joe Schmidt might have been putting a line through their name. Another guy was the Ulster centre.
Oh yeah, McCluskey.
Like, just one trick pony. I mean, he got a load of praise from certain
He has
people.
potential, but
He did, but
never delivered on
well,
it, really.
I think he played against England in Twickenham, and he could manage to. He's a big lad, 6'5" or whatever. He can run up through the middle and knock people down, but that's all he can. He can't pass the ball. He can't distribute.
He can
can't-
offload but not pass.
In
Bit of a Ben
Ireland,
Teo that way.
in Ireland, we've looked at other countries who've had big centres and thought we should get us some of that. So anytime a big centre comes through, whether it's James Downey or Eamon Sheridan or Chris Farrell or Stuart McCluskey, we go, ooh, he's going to be the man. When the reality is, Irish rugby is best served by two small intelligent centres, and always has been.
Well, Robbie
anyway,
Henshaw isn't that small.
He had.
Yeah, but he's an intelligent player.
And he could be him and Bundy Aki, and they're not small.
Yeah, but it's not size that distinguishes them. It's their intelligence and their ability.
It's what's between the ears.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not just brawn. It's,
Yeah.
you know, his brain as well in there. And like I thought, Joe Schmidt was probably done a double red line through his name, because I thought he was shocking on the weekend.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that it's Henshaw and Aki to start, certainly against South Africa.
Yeah.
Last time I saw that partnership play or last time I remember seeing them play anyway, was
Edinburgh.
against Munster. No, I remember against Munster down in Thomond Park.
They
Two
beat
of
them
them
for the first time.
ripped them to
Yeah,
shreds.
yeah. And Aki scored a great try,
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
remember, in the corner. And we just turn our attention back to our game at the weekend.
Yeah,
Second
no,
one?
no,
Second one?
let's say back to our game. I mean, we were talking about our absences and whatever. Glasgow are going to
were
be
an awful
missing
lot.
an absolute lorry load of players as well.
We've a lot of injuries, and they backbone the Scotland team.
Yeah.
So, and their depth, well, they're pretty good depth. In fairness to them, it's not Leinster depth. It's not the kind of depth we have. You haven't got guys killing each other for the jersey over there quite the way that we have. You know, like I would be quite happy seeing. Wasn't it two? What are the lads? O'Brien's. They're quite different looking O'Brien's in they lined up against Bath in pre-season in the centre. I'd be quite happy seeing one of them playing in the centre this week.
Frawley played well for
like you
Leinster
say,
at the
yeah,
weekend.
he's a good
Last
12
weekend,
as well.
yeah.
You know, there are options there that when we go down the depth chart, the guys are okay. If they were surrounded by a lot of their mates of the same age, I wouldn't be so hopeful. But in a fairly decent team, guys like that could easily shine, and you know. Whereas I suppose, in fairness, I don't know the Glasgow depth as well as I know our depth, but it doesn't seem to me that they'd have the kind of
But
players available.
so
to
It's
Somebody
not,
was-
it's not a bad time for us to get Glasgow.
No, it's not. No. If
No,
you're going to
it's
get
great.
Like, you know what I mean? Because it's
even our
obviously-
chances of escaping out of there with a bonus point
Well, you know,
are increased.
Exactly, yeah.
I
And
feel Gregor Townsend might have a soft spot for them and might give them a few players back for the weekend.
Yeah, that didn't work for us with Joe Schmidt. So
No, but
I don't think. I think Gregor Townsend this is his first.
yeah,
This is it. This is Gregor's debut. I don't think he can afford to take any risks.
No.
You know.
You're probably right.
they
I
beat
hope
the
you're
Aussies,
right.
didn't they, in the summer?
They did, yeah.
Then,
but
of course, they lost to Fiji as well.
what was I going to say? Yeah, somebody said during the week that this current Leinster team, the first team, isn't as good as the Leinster team from say 2011, 2012. But what's different is Leinster's squad is now better than the squad was in 2011, 2012, and we have much more depth
In certain positions.
in certain positions. Yeah, but I mean, that's possibly true.
But like, if you look back on that team, I mean, we were so blessed with it. You had guys that were like, okay, you look at our front row now, and you say you mentioned McGrath and Healy being neck and neck and vying for it, and probably who's going to get the number one jersey
was
for
Frankie
Ireland.
and
Like,
Keane back then.
you
Yeah.
think back then, you know, yeah, there was the guy who was coming on to, you know, was good. But maybe not quite. The first front row wasn't quite as good, or sorry, the second front row wasn't quite as good as the first front row back then. But maybe they are now. But then you look at the scrum half position, as we mentioned
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
You had two fellas, two Irish internationals. These lads are a good bit away from that. Maybe you had look at the centres. You know, you had say McFadden, who was in good nick at the time.
On O'Malley.
On O'Malley, backing up Dricko and Darce. You know.
So I suppose the swings and roundabouts there, but it'll be interesting. We'll see it the weekend, because I do think it'll be interesting to see how many players each team gets back from the national coach, or
Yeah, that'll make a big
that'll make a difference. That could be the whole game could be balance on that, on how many players each team gets back.
Yeah.
So if we really do get Kearney and O'Brien, then
Yeah,
happy days.
If we get O'Brien back, O'Brien is in.
God, he was good, wasn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, yeah.
Toner was great as well.
Not bad for his third game of the year.
No. But he's certainly.
Actually, no, it's his fourth.
But
Oh,
he's
no, of
certainly.
the year.
Of the year,
He's
yeah.
bringing his lines for him
Oh yeah, yeah.
straight
he's
back
looking
in. Like,
sharp.
yeah,
Looking sharp.
looks fit. I read an interview with him, and he said that he could have played against Glasgow the previous week, but he didn't feel he was match fit. His leg was right, whatever, but he wasn't match fit. But obviously he put the effort in and got.
Might we have someone like Ruddock as well, or
We might have, because I mean he would be. Although I think he should actually be, considered for the
He's in
bench.
very good form.
To be perfectly honest, he's playing a lot better than Peter O'Mahony.
he's in very
I mean,
good
if
form.
he,
But he's sacred cow, Dave. You can't
he
say that.
he has
about Peter.
nothing. He has nothing. There's no substance behind O'Mahony. It's all column inches. Certainly this year.
Yeah, well,
There's nothing.
like, the great unwashed
I mean-
want their man.
I mean, what's his biggest achievement so far this year? Looking angrily at a retired player. That's his biggest achievement. That's his biggest
No.
contribution
No.
to Munster rugby this season.
No. If you remember the performance he put in when Heaslip got injured against England,
Yeah.
like
That was
he-
last
got him in
season.
the
I'm
lines.
talking about form. I'm talking
Okay,
about on form.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, on form. I mean, I'm talking about just like as a I mean, he's great. The thing about Peter O'Mahony, I think, is if you're in a situation like Joe Schmidt often is, where you can actually build a back row around getting the best out of him and utilising the things he's really, really good at, then you're in a great. Can't always do that in the week in, week out rugby, but he hasn't looked good for Munster this year anyway. He just hasn't been playing well. I mean, it's a bit of a.
No, Standard seems to be analysed.
Maybe he's a bit tired. Standard. He's not used to that kind of going through that whole summer with the heightened pressure of the lines. It's a big thing, you know.
Like you see, that's where O'Brien. I mean, as you said, O'Brien's played 4 games, right?
This
like
year.
Sanders probably played.
About 5, I think.
But Sanders probably played.
25.
Well, I'm just talking about this season. I'd
Oh,
say
yeah.
he's probably played 6-7 games
Possibly,
this
possibly,
season.
yeah.
Whereas Shawnee's probably played 2 for us this season.
The other thing is Sean's a more experienced player in terms of, you know, that whole playing through the summer and at that level, because he's been on a Lions tour before.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what it takes out of you, so he knows what you have to do to recover. But Peter O'Mahony has not played well this year.
No.
I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, and it was a bit of a facetious remark, but it was also true. I mean, that's the biggest thing he's done for Munster this season. Was look angrily at a retired player. I mean, because he's done nothing on the pitch. I mean, he really hasn't. And if you look at Munster against Connacht, everything that Reggie Corrigan said to Peter O'Mahony was absolutely 100% true. They showed no intensity. They had no intensity. When teams are lacking intensity, they do stupid things. They give away stupid penalties. They get themselves yellow cards. They get themselves red cards, and that's what Munster are doing.
And you think about that yellow card, or that red card, that cost them the game. And if you think where the penalty was given, it was given on the 10-metre line in the Connacht half.
Yeah.
So there was no
It wasn't
danger.
even a tactical.
No, there was no danger. But it was just reckless and foolish, and to come down with someone with your elbow right on someone's neck like that.
Especially if you've your eye on the ball and you're not sure where the player is, that's one thing. But he was looking straight at him and didn't, like, he could have pulled his elbow. Okay, you can't take your momentum away when you're in the air.
He was trying to give him a bit of bosh.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt about
Absolutely
that.
was.
Yeah.
And you could see his reaction when he was coming off.
Yeah.
It was like
He
a
just went,
shrug.
Yeah.
So what?
Got caught. Yeah. No, I think that's a problem.
But like
So-
that ultimately cost his team the game.
Yeah, I think
because
so.
Connacht capitalised on his absence and attacked, and they did it 2 or 3 times in the 20-minute period that was left, and they scored from the break was right through his.
And in fairness to Connacht, I think that shows an evolution of their game plan under, because they did change what they were doing on back of the red card. I think that shows that there's an ability to evolve their game plan there under Keane, that they do change in game. Because I was always critical of under Pat Lam. There was they only ever played one way, no matter what was going on. They played this way, and that's fair enough. I mean, but I think that this time they're showing a bit more nuanced approach to the game. But I think that O'Mahony, I mean, you were saying you might get Ruddock back. I don't know if we will, because I think Ruddock might be, certainly in the 23, because he's been playing really well.
Who knows?
Joe Schmidt is going to have some selectorial
Oh, yes,
decisions in that back row.
If things go the way they normally go, what usually happens in these weekends is you might get players back for the bench because they'll be training with Ireland all week, so they won't be able to train with Leinster. So you'll probably see
I remember
someone like him, hopefully, on the bench.
Exactly as you're saying. I remember back when Schmidt was coaching Leinster, he basically said, "Well, if the players aren't with me on Tuesday, they ain't playing."
Yeah.
You know,
I don't
the bench.
think Stuart Lancaster's approach is all that different. Look,
Makes sense.
for me, if I was
You've got a game
picking
plan
the
to
Ireland,
develop.
if I was picking the Ireland back row now, it would be Standard, Conan, and O'Brien. That'd be. I think that those are the best players in the positions available at the moment.
There's not a lot to argue with there, Dave.
No, that's.
in fairness.
I think that Standard at number 6 is a super. I think if he played at number 6 more on the Lions tour, I think he would have played in more Test matches on the Lions tour at 6. I think he's that good at 6.
Yeah, I think it's just the way the fixtures fall as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
A bit like Henshaw, like he played in sort of the
Didn't get a
midweek
chance
team
to-
and
yeah.
lost, and so there was no momentum with
Yeah.
them.
But yeah, so in terms of players we might get back, we might be lucky to get rid of, but I'm not sure that we will. I think he might be one of those guys who's been wrapped up from Cottonwood from now until
Well, hopefully
South African rolls into town.
hopefully we get the chance to stack the bench up with a few of them anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
because we are looking a little light in a few positions, and
Sure
back
are.
row is one of them.
Yeah.
Surprising, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Between injury and Ireland call-ups, there's not a lot left in the cupboard.
the price of success.
We
Yeah.
might have to play because it's something that's been tried in the past, and we might see something like Mick Carney playing in the second row and Maloney
Back row.
dropping into the back row.
Mhm.
You never know.
You never know. All right, boys, we shall see. But thanks very much, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.